Are we on?
We're on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It is Monday Night Live with Dr. Deb and Dr. Joe. We are so happy to see everybody tonight. Well, we're happy you're seeing us, actually, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we have a fabulous guest. We're having a little technical difficulties, so don't mind her right now.
I'm a millennial. This should not be an issue.
Right? I'm the one that has issues. I don't even know what the internet is called. Remember that?
So World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web. That's right.
Yeah. The interwebs. We go.
That whole www thing.
That's right. So tonight, as Alexis gets herself ready over there, I want to just introduce this fine young woman that we met. Oh my goodness, like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. We met at a retreat. And she was there to keep all the docs in line, I think, ultimately. And we really connected kind of on a soul level. And so we've kept in touch over the years. And she is a soul coach and a leadership development consultant. She's an educator for Lululemon. Who doesn't love Lulu? I got my Lulus on right now, actually. There we go. And she's also a coach. She's a leadership coach. She loves to help teams create a culture that has self-aware individuals, just a healthy culture of courageous people, courageous leaders. And we really love her because of her zest for life, her love for God, and her mad people skills. Guys, you are going to absolutely love Alexis Girvan. Welcome, girl.
What's up? What's up?
Man, it's such a treat just to get to see you, but then
I know.
Honored to get to be on your little show. I love that you're doing this.
Thank you. So Alexis is all the way up in Ohio, but of course, because we've got this whole World Wide Web thing, we can connect from anywhere. Yep. So that's pretty awesome. Well, I'm so glad that we finally get to talk. I mean, we've talked over the phone and whatnot, but again, we get to see each other. And you are a very, very busy individual. Every time I turn around, you're on a guest on a different podcast, and you're expanding your reach with your coaching. And it's really, really cool to watch.
Thank you. It's been really fun to watch God work over these last few years. I feel like I've lived a lot of different places. I've watched him move me from like Birmingham, Alabama to Santa Barbara, California to Boston, Massachusetts. And now I'm in Akron, Ohio, which feels like, what is an Akron? I don't really know. But I'm coming and actually being able to support my sister and do life with her and her growing little family has been so divine on so many levels. And getting then to see like the communities that he's created in those different places and spaces has been so profound as well. And like watching him cultivate the calling that he's put on my life and just continue to sort of water it with different communities and different opportunities has really been just exciting. It's exciting to follow him. It's exciting to like be led by the Spirit and go where he's going to go next,
Yeah. Well, it's been, you are a really great example of, when you let go and you follow your heart, your love for your family, right? I mean, that's really been a kind of a guiding source for you as well. Mm-hmm. And you just let go and you wait to see what God has in store. I mean, not that you just sit back and wait, because you always dive in and create your relationships and broaden your horizons everywhere you go. But, we're so attached to stuff, to things. And when you let go and you follow your heart, I mean, your life has just expanded exponentially in so many ways. And so when you let go and let God, actually, what's your little symbol that you've made up?
LG squared.
LG squared. That's right. You got to do a little attitude, So tonight we've been in the series of the 7 pillars of a successful life. And so far we have talked about, what have we talked about? We talked about professional or career. We also talked about, actually, we haven't had family. That's going to be the minors. They're going to be talking with us about that. We also talked about health. We had the Pampas on talking about health. Very well the Fransons. We're going to have them on. I'm so excited. They're the best, aren't they? And tonight we're talking about the spiritual pillar with you. So I would love, when we first met years ago at the Franson's retreat, the Remarkable Practice Retreat, you kind of, I'd heard about Sabbath. I mean, I grew up a Catholic. I know what Sabbath is, but you brought it to a whole different level for me. If you could kind of dive into Sabbath and tell me your definition and tell me what it means to you, I would love for you to share that with our people.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And it's by far one of the most profound concepts, I think, in the spiritual space to unpack, because as a culture, we are so addicted to our speed, right? Like we are just constantly going and constantly moving and really sort of just attached to the idea that productivity, efficiency, and execution is what life is all about. And really, like, those are the things, those are the priorities when it comes down to it that really kind of drive us as a culture. And yet, when you think about who we are as a people, like, we are human. We are not machines. We are human beings, not human doings.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea of actually slowing down to consider what's going on underneath what's going on, and actually being able to name the things that are going on underneath the surface, that doesn't happen at breakneck speed. That actually requires space, requires time, requires coming away from the noise and kind of everything that's backlit and buzzing that's constantly calling for our attention, and coming away from those things to actually consider what is going on in my spirit. What is God trying to whisper? What is Holy Spirit maybe trying to nudge me forward on, and I'm just denying it because I can't hear him. Like, it's not even an intentional denial, it's an accidental denial because we're not actually making space. And so the whole concept of Sabbath, it's funny, I actually learned it when I was in college. My senior year, I took a course in leisure studies, which I was like, what a gift to get to actually take a course in leisure studies. But I took a course in leisure studies, and it totally just reframed my whole idea on this concept of Sabbath. And it taught me, essentially, the idea behind it was that, are you guys still there? Oh no, are you gone? They're gone. Does that mean it's just on me? It's my show? I get to take over? I don't know if I should leave and come back or make them come back. All right, we're going to leave and come back.
I know.
You can log back in.
She's in now. You there?
I
I
hear
am.
you.
I am.
We're just having the hardest time tonight with technology. is not wanting to play.
No, it's not being very kind to us.
Spiritual warfare.
All right. So sorry, everybody. Hopefully you stayed on board and see what's going on. We have some people on still. All right. So we were talking about Sabbath because this is super interesting.
Yeah, and where it stemmed from, like where you actually, got on board with Sabbath and, figured out what it all, where you were going to go with that.
Totally. So I'll pick up where I left off. So essentially, I learned it, ironically enough, in college. In my senior year, I took a leisure studies course, and it was an honor to even get to take a course like that. I'm like, who gets to take a course in leisure studies? It's like a treat. It's like a dessert course. But I took it in leisure studies, and I remember one of the things we looked at was this whole idea of what is Sabbath and how is it defined. And through the year, I watched God kind of teach me what it was. As I was studying the concept, I had been doing this thing on Saturday mornings since my sophomore year, I'd say, where every Saturday morning I would literally get up before everybody else. On a college campus, everybody's like rolling out of bed at like 2 p.m. on a Saturday. But I would get up early and I would go to my favorite little coffee shop on the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I would take my books and I would take my journals and I'd take my music and I would leave all of my homework and I would just go and sort of retreat. And it would just be like this time where I would sit and listen to music and journal out thoughts. And sometimes I would literally just sit and stare out the window. But it was such essential time for my heart and my head to just put together pieces from the week and sort of retreat to recreate. And I learned even through that class, one of the things we talked about was the idea of recreation, like recreation, broken down word is actually recreate. And the kind of work that's done in recreating is that your cells, your body, your mind, your heart get to rejuvenate on so many. And so as I'm studying this concept of Sabbath, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, this is the very thing that I've been escaping every Saturday morning to go do. And I didn't know what it was called. And so as I learn it, I'm learning then the concept of Sabbath is introduced and is defined as a number of things. One of my favorite definitions was the nourishing of an emergence, meaning that nothing had to be produced. Like nothing has to be produced on Sabbath. It's this time, this day of rest where we get to rejuvenate, come away, rest, restore, replenish, all the re's, and basically just allow for nothing to have to come out of the day, but just the nourishing of what's coming next. And
I love that.
I love that idea. I still love it. It's still my favorite definition of the term because it just feels like, oh my gosh, it's not Netflix binging. Like, so I think sometimes people get kind of confused and think, well, okay, great. So I'm just going to take a day off and like do nothing and watch television for the day. Like, no, that's not it. But it is finding out, where do you rest best? What is it where your hands are moving and your body's moving, but your brain gets to turn off a little bit and rejuvenate? And so for so many people, it's like gardening or baking or playing an instrument or running or playing a sport where your body really is just like sweating and moving and panting, like we know is the best for all human bodies everywhere, but not having to think and being able to kind of put together the pieces of life because you're pulling away from life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that I really wanted to do with this whole thing was I wanted this to be through the eyes of a child, so parents can help lead children through these 7 pillars and go through, because I think we're missing that piece of the puzzle right now in society. I think that young age group between 5, 6 years old, all the way up to like 12, 14 and on really, but on is where there's a gap there. And we're not getting into these core pieces of teaching people what to do. But that's the first part of that. The second part of that is someone like me who's just wired fast and to go. Yeah. I find it really difficult to do that. And when the moments I do, it becomes very, it becomes clarity big time. But it is a unnatural, it is like pulling teeth. And yet when I look back as a child, I used to do it all the time and not realize I did it.
Yes.
And then as I got older, I got like too stupid or educated to do it. I don't know. I did it, but it's like weird. So I'd love to hear you talk through the child's eyes and then through an adult's eyes. So both sides.
Totally. No, and it's funny, Joe, even to hear you say that, because I think so often when I'm talking to clients about where they rest best, I will often say, go back to your childhood and go back to thinking when you were in like middle school, what did you just lose time doing? Like, where did you just
I would sit,
what you're gonna say.
I would sit and look out my window and watch the cars go by.
Listening
to music.
to music.
And I would just like zone out for like an hour, 2 hours. And then I would think about my week or what I was doing. And I would like, it was like a form of like meditation / Sabbath. Like it was this crazy thing. And I think about it, I'm like, wow. Now I look outside the window for 3 seconds. I'm like, beautiful sunset. Great job.
Squirrel.
That's great. And I walk away. Like, it's just like, cause it's like, I'm so like going, you know?
Right.
Yeah. It's like a hard thing.
Even for you, what I would say, so the music component of that is huge. And now my guess is if you got in your car and you put on your favorite Spotify playlist, you put on like a favorite album of yours, and you just decided you were going to drive for like an hour and you weren't going to go anywhere. You were literally just going to drive with your music on. That I wonder if you could start to sort of tap back in a little bit to what you love, because then your scenery is changing a bunch, right?
Yeah.
I love it. For me, some of my most epic moments of like thinking and ideation have come from flights, like when I'm traveling and when my earbuds are in and I'm just like completely zoned out and I'm not even driving, but like I'm looking out the window, I swear, and I'm 30,000 feet in the air in a chair. I'm like, you never know what kind of ideation come out of that. But I wonder for you if that might not be a way of just sort of tapping back into the very thing that you used to love.
I'll send you weekly odometer readings to let you know how it goes.
85 miles an hour. Where'd it go?
I'll send you my pedometer and odometer. I'll give you both. So you have
but I'll tell you, you hit the nail on the head. He loves, don't put him in traffic.
No.
You do not want to drive with him. He loses God in traffic. But for a nice drive, he is all in. He could lose himself for sure.
Yeah, I could drive across the country. I think twice about it. Yeah. That's great. So how about through a child's eyes? How do we bring this down to a child's world where they're able to start learning how to tap into this thing and yet, and then be able to like exercise it and then continue to exercise it all the way through life? Because I wish I would have continued that, because it would have just been like a muscle memory to me instead of being a thought, like a memory versus an exercise.
I'm so glad that you're bringing it up, because it's something that right now I think is unknown, right? Is not necessarily celebrated from a cultural perspective. What do we celebrate? And what do we celebrate, not even knowingly, but just unknowingly, because it's what we do on a regular basis. We go a breakneck pace. We're part of every activity. Every day after school, there's something. We never acknowledge and celebrate downtime, right? Like maybe once in a while, maybe once in a week, maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday, there's like, hey, we're not going to schedule anything. But how rare is that? I listen right now to some of my wonderful friends who I love, who have 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, and they are never stopping.
No.
And the few days that they do, it is like heaven comes to earth, and everybody's just at home. And not like, maybe we put away our phones for a little bit and actually eat together. And it's like mind boggling for everybody to just get to stop and to get to be, to be, and not necessarily have a schedule and not necessarily have a plan. I think about the whole idea of kids not necessarily conceptually being able to talk about it yet, but watching what their parents actually celebrate and what their parents commit to from a schedule standpoint. And I think I was talking to a client today about what it would look like to let her kids know we're actually going to take off on Thursday. We're going to choose not to do the activities that we have scheduled, because we have activities every day. We're actually going to let Thursday be a day that we just come home and we don't do anything, just like we do on Sunday, because they do a Sabbath regularly on Sunday, but they're starting to try and implement more space and time, because what I told my client today was that your kids have to see you celebrate both work and rest. And I think there's such a, just again, culturally, there's such a celebration of work and drive and productivity, efficiency, all of those things. And then you bring in now the fact that technology disallows really any boundary unless we create the boundary. It's sort of like every channel of communication now has complete access to us. So again, for kids to see their parents actually making time to not be on their technology, to turn off their work, and to just do whatever as a family is recreating for you. Now that I think is another element probably of introducing it in the kid space, is everybody as a individual within the family knowing what brings them rest, what brings them joy. Maybe for dad it's going for a drive, maybe for mom it's actually like baking, not necessarily because she's got to feed everybody, but because she wants to like learn how to bake bread. And maybe that's a fun thing for her. Or maybe for her like gardening, just like let mom go to the garden for a little bit. But then as a family, what does it look like to actually have a regular rhythm of just connecting and putting away our phones and being together? And for some people it might be super awkward because it's like, okay, now what? We're all just staring at each other. But what does it look like to then create, okay, well, let's decide we're going to start trying to create some sort of conversation. Maybe we pick a board game that we're all going to play. Maybe we go for a walk together. Like, we're not Amish, but like we could go for a walk together and just have a conversation, you know, like what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
So I think the idea is having celebrated rhythms of both work and rest, and actually making intentional effort to not just in what we say, but in actually what we do and how we show our kids that rest can be celebrated just like work, which is really, really a hard concept, I know, for parents, because we're trying so hard to instill good work ethic in our kids, but to actually say that resting is just as good and actually essential as a human being.
And I think that's so important from especially a mom's perspective, because typically we watch moms in the practice all the time, and moms will go 100 miles an hour, serve everybody, serve their children, serve their kids, serve their husband, serve the world. And then at the end of the night at 11:30, they finally have a second, and it's a second, and then they pass out. It's over, and they start their wind again.
Well, and they're also the last ones. I can't tell you how many moms will come in and pay for their child to get adjusted, or make sure their husband is getting adjusted, or that they're doing functional nutrition or doing things to get them better, but they don't pay any attention to themselves. And then I watch, it used to be like 45 and up is where I saw moms start to break down, but I'm seeing it younger and younger because life is insane.
Yeah.
And truly, what happened when you actually started to take downtime, like purposeful, intentional downtime?
Oh, I mean, no, the clarity comes. It's incredible. And not only that, it's like sometimes I slow down and everything flies by me, and I'm like, oh, that was wrong. That was wrong. That was good. That was wrong. Like, it goes by you. So you're able to actually see it instead of just, pulling it all the time. But the thing to go back to the mom thing real quick, I think it's an incredible point is, it's like when the plane goes down, they always say, put the mask on first before you help somebody else. And I think that starts at the top of the pyramid in the family. Was like when mom and dad are taking time, especially mom, and I'm not discarding dad, but especially mom is so important, because when mom has that energy and downtime and that clarity and that peace, not only for herself, but also with her husband. We've seen this in the family dynamic. We talked about that, where, the best families I watch are the ones that the mom and dad put themselves first. And then they make sure that they find and carve out time for themselves inside that family dynamic. And it's amazing what happens is that the kids see that, and not only do they see it, but they respect it. And so I don't think that's any different than that in the spiritual
space. Exactly. I'm going to backtrack that just a little bit. They put God first.
Yes,
and then they put themselves second, as a team, as a unit, as a married couple. Having made these children, who then these children know mom and dad come first. You don't try to divide mom and dad. They are a team. And the children also know what's expected of them. And so when you feed into them that these are the expectations of family, and like he said, the most successful families that we know, those kids know mom and dad are going to ask me about what successes I had in the day, what went wrong during the day, what might have I been able to do better. And so these are just really, if you've got nothing else to talk about, there's an entire time span when you're not together that you can bring into the forefront and do some problem solving, find out what's going on with the kids' lives, and take that as your quiet time. Light a candle, right? Sit near the water, whatever it is that y'all, you hear me? Turn Georgia, whatever y'all enjoy doing.
Great Atlanta. Yeah, honestly, and there's so much truth in there, but I think about, for one, the security that comes in knowing, for kids, knowing that they have a secure family unit, that their parents actually prioritize one another. There's such stability that comes from that. And now I think about the kind of data that's coming out for some of the healthiest teams, like some of the healthiest workers, some of the healthiest employees. What is necessary for healthy operation in a workspace is psychological safety. Understanding that they are accepted, that they're loved, that they are like in a space, not necessarily loved in a workspace, but accepted and valued for who they are. In a familial space, that's that much more important. But to be able to have a unit that they know is strong in their familial bond, like in their parents actually prioritizing themselves, there's something so steadying and so secure in that knowing. And I talked about it with you, Deb, a little bit, was that one of the biggest things my sister and I will both say, one of the greatest images we have from growing up was our dinner table. And just the fact that our parents really prioritized healthy communication at the dinner table. Everything was literally and like figuratively, but also literally on the table. Like nothing was to be hidden. Like we had complete carte blanche to be able to talk about anything. And that is wired into the both of our DNA now. We are so accustomed to make sure that whatever's going on in life, we're talking about it. And nothing's drama. Everything's on the table to be communicated about. And the older I get, the more I realize how rare that is in terms of just familial communication. But I think that that's a really essential component to understanding what it looks like to value the rested rhythms, but the space for communication.
That I can speak firsthand to the truth of that. That, I believe, is what solidified our marriage. So
keep going, because I'm curious.
You'll agree. So for years, we worked together. We lived together. We worked together. We've been together since high school. We did college. We did chiropractic school. We opened a business. We ran the business. We were in the business all the time. And it led to a meshing of every particle of our lives were constantly meshed together. And while we were working for a common purpose, there was such like chaos and confusion because we never really took the time to have purposeful, intentional conversations. And we had to learn. Now, a lot of people are going to understand this because you have, even if you don't work together, you've got the bills and you've got the economies of running a family, right? So that's a business of senses. And then you have the family, the love, the nurturing, and all of that. They're two completely separate things. And if you don't take the time, us learning to take that time, carve it out when we're going to talk just about business, and then that doesn't infiltrate into our daily lives, it was a game changer. You got to admit that one, right?
I agree. I agree.
Total game changer.
I think too, we know the Fransons talk so highly often about the concept of the coffee date, right? Which I'm probably when they're talking about when they come on, but just the idea of making intentional time and carving it out for specific things like that, especially for just straight connecting, and then being able to actually, again, celebrate those rhythms and prioritize those rhythms, both of being in the office together and getting your work, like moving forward on the mission, and then also straight connecting as well.
So some closing thoughts. I would love to hear like some takeaways of like, how can someone just get into this rhythm and slow down and be able to start trying to implement some of these practices spiritually, to just get in there and start carving out time? Like, what would be some practical steps? Say someone's like, I've been in and out of church. I've, I was raised X or Y, and I'm on the fringes and I'm not on the green. And like, how do I get on the green? Like,
Yeah, and even some resources
yeah,
too.
yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, I love it. So a couple of my favorite resources that I'll just call out quick before I talk about some of the practices. There's a book that got published just a couple of years ago called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I know. Even just the title, I was like, I can just add to the bank. Like that's a quote that I can put up on my wall and remember that in and of itself, the concept of ruthlessly eliminating hurry from life. What does that look like? It's by John Mark Comer, who is the pastor of Bridgetown Church in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, I just started listening to him.
Did you?
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites. I feel like he's pastored me from so many miles away from now the last few years. But his whole book, he really unpacks the concepts of slowing, of Sabbath, of solitude and silence, which again feel very kind of ancient in their practice to us, especially in 21st century American culture, but they're really pretty essential to hearing from the Lord and to hear the Holy Spirit in our life. So that book, profound. And then another one that I love that I used all through college and now has become something that I'll use in my work a lot. I recommend a lot of people read it, is called The Rest of God. And it's by Mark Buchanan. And actually, Joe, I feel like maybe you can get it on audio in your like speed and of your constant move.
2.5 it.
What'd you say?
I'll 2.5 it. Like I'll fast forward.
He listens to things sometimes. I'm like, what are they saying?
I listen to everything in 2.0. It's like crazy. It's like,
got it. He's talking right now. Yep, totally. At least something's going in there. But yes, get it on Audible. But he's really funny. And I feel like you would actually really engage with the way that he writes, because he's both profound and deep and also hilarious. Like I was laughing out loud when I was reading his book. I'm like, this is an art. The way that he writes is an art. But really, really pragmatic, practical ways to actually start to implement. And that's what we need is like, okay, how do you actually start to do some of these things and ask yourself some of the questions? One of the practices that I will say is has been since college, really for me, has been one that I have started, that I've cultivated, that I've iterated, that's become now a totally separate entity on its own, but is an essential part of my Sabbath, is what I call the week in review. And it is a practice that I think really sort of allows anybody in any space to kind of just pause for a second and reflect with some structure. And it's really just the idea of, taking some point of your weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, and even sometimes Monday morning, people can do it, but it really takes a little bit of coming away from the work and looking back on the week and just thinking through from a physical perspective, mental perspective, social perspective, spiritual perspective, going through each of those kind of lifetime value counts, financial, professional, vocational, recreational, and just thinking through what was last week? How did I do last week? How did I feel? Where was I? Who was I talking to? What did I do to build into my life? Did I do anything to build into my life? Just thinking and actually maybe picking a few questions that you ask yourself on a weekly basis. And one of the things that I'll do with a week in review is I'll go through physical, mental, social, spiritual, each of those things. And then at the end, I'll just say, okay, what do I want to take with me? And what do I want to leave behind?
That's great.
And just that, even if I had a crazy Sunday and I did nothing else, but stopped for like 30 minutes, 20 minutes just to do that, the power in that reflection, I think is really just profound and bar none. And so I would say just even that practice and then to think about what that might look like to do that with your spouse, to do that with your family, and just say, what were our highs from last week? What were our lows from last week? And what do we want to be intentional about this week? I think that in a super simple, definitely takes the like, okay, we're going to put our phones away for a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of intentional conversation, but to guide it with that. And I think where the biblical foundation for that is that from a Sabbath perspective, Israel was not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for Israel. Like it was a gift given to them that they were able to look back on what God had done the 6 days before and call it good. And so being able to actually make some time at the end of a week to look back, not to look forward to what do we have to do this week, but like, what do we look back on and remember?
Mm.
What can we remember from last week that we can call good? And there's so much from a gratitude standpoint that comes in. There's so much remembering, like the joining of things again, the healing that comes in remembering is profound. But to be able to do that work and just pause for a few minutes to call last week good and done before you move into the next, I think is really powerful.
Amen, sister. I like that.
That was great.
That
Super.
was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that, to your day doesn't really begin when you open your eyes. It begins before you go to bed. And when you can put things in perspective in your head, what the day looked like, what tomorrow is going to look like, then you literally you'll go to bed and you'll filter through some of this stuff also. So when you get to the next day, you're ready to go rather than already behind the 8 ball, stressed about having to get out of bed. I mean, you're ready to go. So just imagine you take this a step further and you start or end every week like this. Imagine what each week will be like and the exponential growth personally, in your family, professionally, in every part of your life. I love it.
And, I will say to have then a little record. I mean, you guys probably know I'm a huge journal fan. I think journaling is just a powerful practice that anybody can benefit from, even if all you're doing is journaling 3 things you're grateful for at the end of the day. To be able to look back on your week and look at the 3 things you were grateful for Monday through Saturday, it's amazing what we forget. There's so much that happens in a day for all of us that to be able to look back and remember is pretty profound. And then after you've done weeks of this, you can look back on a quarter, you can look back on a half a year, you look back on an entire year, and you see all that you have forgotten and all that God was actually doing. And you can start to weave together threads of how he's working. And that to me is so much of how we learn how to listen to him.
Mm.
Excellent. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm going to challenge you.
Yeah, challenge. Hello, challenge.
Right
Yes, excellent.
I'm gonna check on Joe. I'm gonna check on his speedometer, his odometer, and then his journaling. How he's doing up there. He's doing journaling. But
it's been awesome, man. We'll post those books and put that stuff up there. It'd be great. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
And how can our audience find you, connect with you, maybe coach with you?
Yeah. I am on all the social media forms. I'm out in every, I'm on the web and on Instagram. They can just find me at alexisgirvan.com. They can connect with me that way. And then on Instagram, same, Alexis Girvan. And I'm always happy to just connect to find out a little bit more about what people are looking to do. And my favorite thing is to help people actually slow down and do this work. So I'm happy to connect with anybody who would like to.
Awesome.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Love you, kiddo.
Thank you for all you do. We love you and we appreciate you. And we hope to see you sometime soon.
Yes.
And for everybody else, don't forget, every week, Monday night, we are here talking it down with
disconnected. Welp. Hope y'all loved it. Hope to talk to some of you soon. Bye.